Your cinematographer called me one night and said, can you talk to a young director? And I said, by all means. The guy had a project, a really nice project, and needed a very small amount of voiceover. And I read it, and it was reminded me a little bit of, well, those great television shows where we're brought into a world of something not quite right, and where anything can happen, and I forget the name of the show, but you know, pardon me?
Twilight Zone?
Yeah, Twilight Zone, yeah, so a number of those shows, a bunch of them, anyway, and so it's simple and appealing, and well, what did it take, 15 minutes? And there we are. Sometimes you can do a turn for somebody, and if they're successful, they go around hiring actors, you know, and we're in favor of that. Oh, this picture's fun. It takes us into a world of interesting people, and we meet a guy who's a threatening bastard, and we don't know how this little girl is going to get out of it, but to the rescue, a shrouded woman who drinks a lot, and watch out when she comes after you. When I was young, my mother sent me a book called White Hyacinths. At the beginning of the book it said, if I had but 2 loaves of bread, I would sell one of them to buy white hyacinths to feed my soul. Now from that I understood that life had a spiritual component and that you had to feed it. The end of the book, which is a series of essays about work and delivering your best and other such, you know, lofty things, at the end of the book, the very last thing it said was, and the reward which life holds out for work is not ease or rest or immunity from work, but increased capacity, greater difficulty, and more work. And I thought, oh God, I hope not. I was a pretty lazy guy when I was young, and was hoping that I could get through, you know, easy in life. And then I became an actor, and I realized how important a day's work is to an actor. So when you ask me what was most memorable, the last thing I did was pretty memorable, which is this, you know, I spent some hours. I looked at it last night, I read it a couple of days ago. I spent an hour here today just looking it over and reading it and asking myself, now what can you get out of this that was meant, and bring your audience into a little life, a little story, bring them to somewhere else, and then you go in there, and like right now, and you take a few shots at it, and you know, it's not magic. You put down what the guy said, and it generally works. Never forget that there are this many of us and this many jobs. It's not a mystery. It's very, very hard to get work. But when you do get work and you do have a creative job to put your energies to, it's one of the great things. And when you don't have that in the day, you put your best energy to whatever else is in the day, because it's a day of infinite number of possibilities of doing good or less good if you choose to. But when you do your best, I remind actors, you get that reward they always tell you you're going to get. The reward of self-respect, the reward of satisfaction. And if you were looking for what constitutes the good life, self-respect and satisfaction are big components in that. So whether or not you're dealing with something that's creative, or whether you make something creative out of going to get the groceries, you are in charge. And that's what I remind actors, whether or not you have something to work on, you got a whole days full of things to make better. A guy who knows a good take when he sees one and can say, yup, that's good. Now, you know, once you know somebody recognizes a good one, you know you're not dealing with somebody who is just shooting it and shooting it and shooting it and shooting it just to see what somebody else will tell them is any good. That's what, it's like being a cook. You want the cook to have a good taster, to know what tastes good. He doesn't have to ask somebody else. Doesn't have to ask the customer or the waiter, does it taste any good? No, the chef is supposed to know whether it tastes any good. That's what you're hoping for in a director, somebody who can recognize a good take and say, good one, let's move on, especially if you don't have much time, which young directors rarely do. Older directors with lots of money can take it, 80 times if they want to, but young guys got to be able to find a good one and move on. Well, as some of your actors are going to know it, because the actor's going to come in knowing his material pretty well. I never met an actor who didn't work real hard at showing up prepared. Some do, I imagine, but not many. And so the actor will come in with a reasonably deep understanding of what he's doing. Some actors, I suppose. And you want to know the material as well as they do, so that you can, be helpful to them. Or at the same, and the other extreme is what John Huston said, which is casting is 90%. Once you cast the right person, all you got to do is step aside, let them figure it out, because the actor is always trying to make something real out of what's going on, and hopefully getting the best they can out of the material. So you got a willing partner in the actor, and when they're good, you give them a little space, and if they're not, you shape them up a little bit.